This is the Ninja's Way podcast, where we talk all things ninja industry, ranging from top tier athletes to the local ninja entrepreneur. Listen to their journey to success as they conquer obstacles in ninja and in life. This is the Ninja's Way. Welcome back, everybody, to the Ninja's Way podcast. I'm here with Ginny. She is an American Ninja Warrior. She is an actress. She became an American Ninja Warrior at 68 years old, and she is the embodiment that strength is ageless. Ginny, thanks so much for being with us today.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. Why don't you just give us a little intro on how you got into ninja and how were you able to pick up this sport at 64 years old?
It's a long journey, but I'll start with the fact that I did retire at 62, and I wanted to get back to my acting career, which was my very first dream when I had to leave it a long time ago. So I started out with acting, but then I saw my daughter, who is Jesse Graff, and she's done 12 different episodes, and she's gone farther than any other female. So I was cheering her on the sidelines. Moms love to do. And I saw that Jesse was making history for girls everywhere and showing them that it's cool to be strong. And I was one of those girls, actually. I saw her and her muscles just looked healthy and she looked strong and confident. And growing up, we were not encouraged to lift weights or get strong in any way. In my generation, it was just a known fact that you don't want to get too bulky. So I looked at her and I went, all those things are just not true. It's healthy and wonderful. And she looked graceful. And I went, Jesse, I would like to get stronger. And I had no upper body strength. And she told me a lot of different ideas. But what really stuck with me was to do pull-ups. Now, I had never done pull-ups before. I'd never been in a gym before, and I'd never done sports before. I grew up as a dancer, and I danced for 20 years from youth through age 30. And so the upper body, even though you're strong with dance, it's a different kind of strength. So I was not very successful at getting that pull up. In fact, I got the bar and I put it in the door jamb. And I just worked with the handles that come down from the bar. And I was doing the best I could. I sent a video to Jessie and I said, I'm working my way to a pull up. And she goes, I'm so happy that you're working on this, but that's not a real pull-up. You have to go all the way down and all the way over. Your chin should be over the bar. And I went, I'm going to a personal trainer. I have no idea how to lift weights. And there's so many people that hurt themselves when they just start lifting weights that I went, I need somebody that will show me the proper technique and how to do this. And even now, I find that my dance takes over in a lot of cases where I'm trying to have that artistic look as I go up and point my toes. It was a long journey. It took me an entire year working on not just upper body, but legs and chest, back, arms, all around to get stronger. And it took me a year to get that first pull up. The first time I did it was when I was 65. And it was a rude awakening, believe me.
From that first year into doing pull-up, it sounds like you were active before that, just not really strength training or anything.
I think that, like most people, after I stopped dancing, I was raising a family. I was working at a radio station from 8 to 5. So I wasn't, for those so many years, doing anything other than my own little 20-minute workout in the very early in the morning before I went to work, had to do with crunches and push-ups and stretches and my own little workout. Any more than 20 minutes, and I wouldn't do it every day. Any less wasn't effective. So I did that, and I did swimming and just recreational swimming. So there was a period from age 30 to 63 when I started working on a pull-up, where I was, like most folks out there, just trying to get through a work day and raise my kids.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm there.
And that's a lot. That's a time when a lot of people stop working out and they stop doing their sports because they're driving their kids to all the different sports and spending time that way. But I found that you can work with your kids when it comes to working out. For instance, Jesse and I, we now have this great bond, ninja bond.
Yeah.
And I think more parents are starting to work out with their kids, and it's a great moment.
Absolutely. And that's something that I love about Ninja is that it's something that the whole family can do, right? It's like the little brother, the mom, the grandma, like everybody can do ninjas for everybody. And it can be such a bonding sport like that. I was listening to another podcast that you had done, and you were talking about your dance career and how it taught you discipline. So, what do you feel like Ninja has taught you?
It's given me great grip strength. So I feel like as I age, I'm going to be able to open those jars. It's given me confidence, a great confidence in my ability.
Mm-hmm.
It's giving me a great bond with the whole ninja community who are so supportive. When I go to competitions, it's like they really want you to do well, and that's a great feeling to have because it's hard enough to get to a competition and feel good about it, but when you're welcomed by this community that they don't mind that you fall on the first obstacle. They go, wow, you're here. That's great. That's the
Right.
first step. So there's a lot of different things. I also learned to deal with all sorts of failures. And I think when I fell on that first obstacle back when I was 65, I was devastated. And Jesse helped me. My husband helped me. My husband said, you'll do it again. And I'm like, what? How could you say that? And he said, because you can. And Jessie, my daughter, was saying, don't let one fall define you. Look how far you've come. And it's true. I had this process of getting stronger was a wonderful feeling, and I wanted to keep that up. So there are great times and there are hard times, but as long as you just keep getting up and trying, that's a huge part of the whole thing because it's a lot mental. So I think I've gotten stronger mentally. Oh, sometimes I'm not so strong mentally, but
It comes and goes, right?
yeah.
You worked up for a year to get that true strict pull up and then how long was it thereafter that you actually were trying the ninja and competing for on the show?
When I got my first pull up, it was American Ninja Warrior was like on season 8, and the producers thought it would be a great story to have a mother-daughter segment. And what a beautiful job they did in producing that.
Yeah.
And in that point, so if I got my first pull up at 60, I started at 63 to get a pull up. I didn't get it for a year. So I was barely able to do one pull up. And then I went ahead and I sent in the submission to do my first competition with American Ninja Warrior. And I did get the call. And then I'm like, what do I do? Jesse says, well, you better get to some kind of a competition. And I went, yeah, where do I find competitions?
Yeah.
And I started looking up and went to my first competition. I felt so out of place. Not that people weren't welcoming, because they were. It's just, I don't think they'd seen a gray-haired lady come in and are you competing? I went back and forth between an obstacle. You can't see or go on any of these obstacles before you compete. And I was like looking at this first obstacle where you had to jump to a ring and go down a zip line, which didn't really get you to the end. You had to really push to get there. And I'm like, how can I jump and catch that ring? And I kept looking at it. My friend said, keep your eyes on where you want to catch and your hands will follow. And that worked. And I used that principle in just about everything. You have to spot it, you have to see it, and then reach for it. And it's the same thing with your feet. You have to see where you're, like if you're going to a mini trip, you look to where you're jumping, but then you have to go up and your eyes have to change to where you're going. So your eyes are a huge part of the whole getting the obstacle. And that was a great lesson for that first one. And I got through about 5 obstacles. So it was a good feeling. It's not like being over water and in the middle of the night shooting.
Right.
But but it was a good first attempt.
That's
So
awesome.
with starting ninja later in life and breaking down some of these more complex skills, you had this little video where I think you were like jump into some like cannonballs or something on your social. And I just loved the way that you broke it down of, okay, we need to take this, what could be a complex thing, and break it down into something that's actually achievable and like this bite-sized piece, which I feel like is something that ninja coaches and people who run ninja programs really need to have to be able to teach this to kids. What's your process when it comes to breaking down an obstacle into a bite-sized piece that you're like, oh, I can do this part of it?
Yeah, I call it progressions because when you look up at something that you want to jump to and catch, it can be daunting. And so I think, let me just jump up and see how close I am to it. Let me touch it. Let me get the feel of it. And those cannonballs, you want to catch it between your fingers. And so that can be like, oh my gosh, I'm going to jam my finger. So touching it, getting the feel of how high to jump, where your hands are, and just not catching, because you don't want to get a jerk to your shoulders either. So it's a little process of just touching it and coming down. Same thing with bar. If you're jumping to a bar or a ring or any kind of nunchucks, that just that feeling of jumping and that you can catch it, and then trying to catch it and maybe not catching it, but trying again, because it's like, okay, I know how far to jump, and it's just baby steps, little by little. So once you catch it, then, oh, great. Now let me try to do it from further away, or let me do it from a mini tramp, or let me do running and jump, which is going to be my next step. I want to run, hit the mini tramp, grab it, go to the second mini tramp, and then push off from there. So again, it's just one step at a time. If you remember the very first steps that we had in Ninja Warrior, they were the Quinn steps. There may have been the quad steps, but I'm not talking that far back.
Yeah.
There were Quinn steps that went up on an incline, and they were at an angle. And I put my foot on one of those and I went, I'm going to break my ankle jumping from side to side on an incline like that. So we brought them in closer and made the incline not as only a small incline, and tried the cat grab where you jump to the step and hold it. Try it with the 3-step, I call it 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 with your feet. And then when I felt nice and confident with that, we moved it out by inches and then more inches. So that's what I mean by those progressions and the baby steps. Is sometimes you look at it and you see it on TV and the athletes make it look so easy.
Yes.
But it's not. And then you get in front of it and you go, oh, I don't know about that.
Glad you're on the spotlight too.
Yeah.
A whole other.
My mind, when I first did it, oh my gosh, what have I done?
Yeah. Yeah, there's no backing out, right?
There was no backing out then.
That's awesome. With that said, as of 2023 or later 23, I don't want to age you, but you were the oldest competitor ever complete an obstacle, it said.
Yeah, can you believe that? I was shocked.
Yeah, I'm not shocked now meeting you and talking, but your daughter's leaving her mark on her legend in American Ninja Warrior. Then you come in and you have your own record. So that's pretty cool.
It is very cool. And I don't feel, I'm 72 now. Next month I'll be 73. And I don't know. I don't think that 70s is that old anymore. I'm a little worried about 80s, but I guess you have to just keep pushing it out a decade.
Then you can start running for president when you get in your 80s.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I wouldn't want to do that at all.
No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Harder than the
So you brought up some great points that is something we want to talk about as a master level ninja in the sense of competing masters. You can pick it up at a later age and still have fun with it and still progress with it. And those are great tips that you just threw out there. Like, you don't need to try the obstacles that the 20-year-olds are doing or the 25-year-olds. You can bring them in a little bit. You can decrease the incline. There's a lot of tips where you can the obstacles work for you to work up and get that strength. But
Yeah, no.
great tips on that.
What the younger, the 20-year-olds and younger are doing is just amazing to me.
Yeah.
Sometimes they go so fast, I can't even see the obstacle. They're past it. But yeah, it's the masters, just so you know, is 40 plus. So that's still a huge difference between 70 to 73. But one of the leagues, A, now has started this year 50 plus,
Yeah.
which I think is going to bring in more of the seniors again, because it's a little bit closer to what we can do and how we have to approach obstacles. And it also helps because a lot of the gyms and the competitions are making adjustments for masters, which they didn't do before. So it's our own course in a lot of cases. And just recently, I went out to a competition and they were working on the very first national team, USA national team, USANA. And it's not only by 50 plus, but it's also by 60 plus. And then after that, every 2-year increments. And I really wanted to be a part of that because I don't know many people and females in their 60s that are doing this. So I went, I really want this so bad. And so I was the only female, but I am on the USA national team. And that just the very first one. And that just made me feel so good. A real accomplishment, even though I was the only one at this point. What I am seeing is a lot more masters out there and more parents and their children. You'll see it on American Ninja Warrior. You'll see brothers and parents working all together. And a lot of them have their own gyms, which is, that would be nice if I had that. So it's changing, even though the younger people are making strides and doing incredible obstacles. The older people are also, or I should say seniors or 50 plus, are also making a mark at what they're able to do. And I hope that will become a model for my grandchildren. Look what you can do when you're a senior.
Yeah, absolutely. And you bring up a really interesting point I did want to ask you about was when UNA, they rolled out their 50 plus age class, right? This for season 10. And I think it's interesting to see these kind of play out on the world stage level, right? So it's like you had UNA Worlds. I think you were there at that event. Do you feel like these courses that they are designing for the masters, are they actually hitting the mark? Do you feel like they are taking in consideration the athlete that they are trying to serve? Or do you think that maybe that's an area where Ninja can progress a little bit of taking more in consideration of who is on the course and how do we design a course for that person?
I think it's changing quite a bit. It depends on which competition you go to and how sensitive people are to age and injuries that can happen and how to be careful about doing that. But not always. American Ninja Warrior is sometimes you have 15, 16-year-olds against 73-year-olds. I don't feel that I'm really competing against them, though. I feel that I just want to do I want to conquer the obstacle. I'm not trying to be the fastest. I'm not trying to do the fastest lache that I can. I'm just trying to get through the obstacle the best way I can. But in the regional ones, it's taken a while. There are many world championships where masters would make it to the third obstacle and that was it. They couldn't get past that. No one could. But now they really have made big changes in what they are offering as to a course for masters 40 plus, and in some 50 plus. We're hoping everybody will be 50 plus, and then 60 plus, and then maybe 70 plus.
So you brought up something when you were just speaking about the courses and that question, Allie. As a master athlete, it's one thing for this younger generation. They don't really think about injury prevention that much. They just are doing it, except for hand care. That's their biggest one because they're training like 3 hours a day and their hands are wrecked. But as a master athlete, is injury prevention like at the forefront? How do you approach that in your training?
Yes, that's a big one. I recently did give some damage to my shoulder because it's a lot of upper body work. So now what I have done in the past year is I do all sorts of mobility for my shoulders, for each of my joints, because the joints take the big brunt of everything. I spend maybe 2 or 3 times a day doing different kinds of mobility just to make sure that the joints are very strong. And I think Jesse put it this way, is that she tries to put a level of armor around each of her joints.
Yep.
So if you strengthen the muscles around it, so not only am I working on mobility, but I'm also working on strengthening just the rotator cuff, just very specific areas that take the brunt of it. It's so easy to, you're in a competition, your adrenaline is going, and you jump up to something and then it drops, and then there's this huge jerk to you. And so I see a lot of shoulder injuries and knee injuries. And so I think it's very important as you age, but I think everybody should learn how to warm up the muscles before you go into one of these competitions, and then afterwards stretch. So that's the other thing. You're always
Yeah.
getting your body, your upper body, you also want to lengthen it and stretch it afterwards. But the warm up is a huge part of what I do now. I do it with bands, I do it with just mobility, and to keep that active and warmed up.
Absolutely. You made me giggle there with the mobility and hours of mobility work. That sounds so much like an adult athlete. Like we're always just stretching it out, working it out. Like so that is a perfect piece of advice right there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's easy to do if you're watching TV.
Yeah,
You can certainly do
exactly.
that kind of thing. I do this kind of a thing. I got this from Jesse too. You get um, these are rubber bands from around your broccoli, and I just go like this to work on
Nice.
grip strength. Yeah, or you can
That's
do it in
awesome.
sand if you're by the ocean, or rice in a bucket. And I use this kind of a thing too, the grip bar, to
Oh,
Yep.
constantly. This has got a weight inside it, so you can make it different strengths and take that in and out. These are like little tools that, when I don't like the idea of just sitting.
Yeah.
I'm always trying to do a little bit of something
You
that
always be training a little bit, training or rehab, even when you're sitting there watching TV, like you said.
Yeah, and it's also for everyone out there, the strength training, the cardio is so important for your longevity. The stronger you are, the more independent you can be for as
Yep.
long as possible, so that you can get in and out of a chair, that you can go up the stairs, you can play with your grandkids and grip that jar and open it. So those are things that you can learn. They're just the small health benefits. And that's my message to people out there in general, as well as ninjas, is just keep moving. Just keep moving.
totally. And you spoke to this a little earlier in the interview around you grew up in this era where women shouldn't lift weights, you're gonna get too bulky. It just wasn't a part of the culture, right? And obviously, a lot has changed around that mindset, at least in current day society. So, what kind of taught you this mindset? If the world that you grew up in told you to not do this, like what life experiences pushed you to break the mold and say, no, I do want to do this?
I guess the first thing that comes to my mind is when I was 16, I made a vow to myself that I would never stop exercising. Now, when I make a vow to myself, I have to keep it. So I have always done some kind of movement, dance, of course, until I was 30, but some kind of exercise, whether it's swimming or just playing with the kids. We used to set up little courses in the front yard when my kids were little, 2 sticks with a string in between it and jumping over it and running around in all sorts of fun ways. So I, I I don't know what pushed that. I wish I did. My parents did not exercise at all, and it probably came from that. But
Hmm.
I just felt that it was just very important to me to stay healthy and strong. There were no
No.
sports really for women in my high school. There was swimming, which I didn't do. There was volleyball, I think, and track. And I didn't do any of those. I did the majoretting. That was a lot
Yep.
of girls did cheerleading. There, there just wasn't what became in the 70s with Title IX, and all these sports started popping up. And my daughter was able to take advantage of that with a scholarship in pole vaulting in college. It's just what opened up for women and what can be. Weightlifting wasn't in the Olympics, or wasn't competition. It wasn't in competition until 72, I think, 1972. By then, I was already in my 20s and trying to do Broadway. So you have all this stereotypes, all this social norm that has come before you. I know going to New York and becoming a dancer was not the norm either, because, you know, who's going to make it? How many people actually make it? So there were a lot of those no's. But if you give yourself a chance, like when I went to New York, it was like, I'm going to give myself 3 to 5 years, because it's going to take that long just to learn the ropes of being in New York and what I want to do and how that will take me. So I'm big on goals. Goals are really important to me. And if I say it, I have to do it every morning. I have goals for the day. And it's okay, what am I going to accomplish today? And I have to do it. And if I haven't done it by the end of the day, I go, oh, I'm going to do it now. And it's 9 o'clock at night, but I'm going to do it. Even if it's hanging for a minute, dead hanging. I don't know where goals came in that was so important to me, but it is.
Goals is a big one for, if there's any takeaway from this podcast, that's one, set goals. And then you got something to work towards.
And I don't always make them. So you can't be hard on yourself if you say, I'm going to be able to jump to that bar today and grab it and swing on it. And if you're able to just touch it, that's the process to getting to the goals. You literally have been working on the goal. It's just that you haven't. Let's think of it as the process, not necessarily the end goal. But if you're working on the process, that is the goal, right?
Yeah, you gotta fall in love with the journey, right?
Yeah, we keep telling ourselves that all the time.
Do you have ninja goals now, or are you going to be on the show again, or are you still competing, or what's your future look like?
Yeah, I'm going to try to do the next one, and we'll see how that goes. One never knows when you don't know what the obstacles are. It's one little wrong step in the wrong direction, or you don't move fast enough on something and you're gone. But yeah, I'd like to do that again. I also would like to do something more for Guinness. I got the world record in Guinness for being the oldest competitive female ninja. So I'm always trying to do something with climbing a rope, and be at the age I am. There's somebody in Paris who went 316 feet up in the air on the Eiffel Tower. And I was like, okay, I'm not doing that. That's too far high. Yeah, so it's hard to find the right venue for getting a world record, but it was something else. That was a real exciting moment.
Oh, that is. Going back to AAW, American Ninja Warrior, and for all the aspiring ninjas that want to know how to get on the show, or they're good at locally and they're good ninjas and they think they should be on the show, even Jesse Graff's mom has to submit a video to get on the show.
Like even Jesse Graff does.
Yeah, even Jesse does. There's no shortcuts. You just have to do the submission to at least get an opportunity.
That's true. Yeah. I would say definitely to keep working on strength training and cardio, keep that going every day. A day of rest is good. I feel that you need to go to regional competitions, because that gets you used to it. There's a real frightening moment when you are like, oh my gosh, can I do that? I don't know if I've never done that before. Can I? Getting on top of the nerves. So those are the first two things. But if you feel that you're ready to do that, then you have to do a submission. It's usually a 3-minute submission, which shows skill and personality. So that's what I put together when I first sent in and submitted. And then you try and put your best foot forward, obviously, and the things that you can do and showing that personality. And then you just have to wait for them to call. And I know people who have submitted 7 years and finally got a call to be on the show. So they look at over 70,000 videos that come in. So it's very difficult. You just have to bide your time and keep at it. It's like that persistence, not giving up,
Yeah.
and feeling strongly that this is something that you want to do. So what's the harm in submitting every year? And you can have some humor with it. And this is the 7th year I've done
Yeah.
it. But yeah, that's what I would say is how to get on the show.
It sounds like you did the work of going to these regional competitions. If you look at your social media, you've been to a lot of different types of comps, different types of gyms. Do you have a favorite experience either at a specific comp or a gym that really sticks out in your mind?
Yeah, I usually go to the ones in North Carolina because that's where I am and that's where I can travel to. I don't have a gym that's real close to me, so I do have to travel. But I'd say the first one that I did, and that gym no longer is around, was at Ninja Quest. And that was in Atlanta. And that was the closest one. It was a 7-hour drive for me, but that was the first one I went to. But that was like what broke me into the ninja experience of competing, was that gym. And I did good for the first time. So that'll always be in my heart of hearts. But there are so many gyms in North Carolina, I couldn't pick just one because each of them are helpful and different. Like Level Up in Thomasville is one of my favorites, and Warrior Tech in Raleigh, and Rock Solid, also close to Raleigh, and Warrior Zone. So those are the ones that I typically go to. I'd like to go to Motive in South Carolina more, but 5 hours to do a competition, you have to really spend the night. It just can get expensive. I can't do all of the competitions anymore. I did last year, and it was a lot of driving and a lot of competing and a lot of wear and tear on my body. So the World Ninja League they have the challenge course and the flow course. And so there are different kinds of courses and skills. I love that kind of a format. Some of them are in the World Ninja League and some of them are in UNAA. And in North Carolina, we have the Ninja Carolina League. Those are where I stay. When I visit Jesse, we always go to a gym. But yeah, I guess I'm pretty much North Carolina bound.
So it's really a passion now, it sounds like.
It is. It's when it comes to Ninja Warrior, I don't want to be 80 or 90 looking back and go, oh, I should have done that. Why didn't I do that? What's the worst that can happen? It's already happened to me to fall on the first obstacle. Yeah. It's going to hurt. It's a new obstacle I've never done before. I like to go in baby steps. They're not going to let me do baby steps. So that's the thing about doing obstacles later and it becoming a passion. Because I just want to get the obstacle. I think it's a life thing. We have so many obstacles in our way, whether it's some kind of physical problem you have to get over or illness, or I like to think of it as hurdles. There's an obstacle, you have to jump over it, but just as you get over it, then there's another one down the way and another one. And it's just, you're keeping ahead of those hurdles as much as you can. And I like the idea of conquering an obstacle because it's doable. Sometimes I look at it and I go, that's impossible. I'll never be able to do that. How many times do we do that? And then those baby steps and those progressions. And then one day you get it. And it's such a sense of accomplishment.
Yeah, you met the goal. I got a question for you. First and foremost, you were a ninja mom.
Yep.
So watching your daughter still compete, do you still get nerves like when they were younger, when your kids were younger competing? Because there's a lot of ninja moms now that have that, the 8-10-year-old, whatever it is, competing all the time when they're nervous or worked up. And as a parent myself, my kids compete in other sports too, and even ninja. It's like you get more nervous. Do you still have that even with now an adult competitor?
Always. You just put your foot in one bad direction and boom. And you just never know if that moment is going to be there or not. So how much it means to your child, your adult child. You want them to get the goal that they want. You want them to be happy and to accomplish what they can accomplish. But the thing with ninja is if you do it a lot, like there are times when you're just not going to get that warped wall. There are times when you're too tired, or you don't have the stamina, or it's just the foot went in the wrong direction and down you came, or you just didn't study it, hard enough.
Yeah.
So I don't want to run and hug her and say, oh, it's okay, because I don't want to. I want to give her space.
Yeah.
And I want them to go through the process that you have to. Oh, I fell. I'm so mad that I fell. Why did I fall? And then when you can, give them as much comfort as you can, which is what I want. I want to be able to go through the process that you need to do when you have a failure. But I get real nervous when she's up there. There's no doubt about that. But she actually gives me confidence because she has such a plan. You can see her working it out, and she's so strong and she's so comfortable up there. It's just her venue. It's great. It's not my venue. It's out of my norm.
Jesse has set the bar so high for herself and her success, where at this point it's hard to see her not achieve her goals, I'm sure, because she set the bar high for just everybody.
It's true. And she had all these surgeries. So it's always very hard mentally to come back from that, as well as physically. She had both shoulders done and her knee pretty much all in the same year. And so it took a long time to come back, but she did. And she came back strong.
Yeah.
But now there are new techniques that the younger folks are coming up with, this linking and the speed that they go through. And what I'm so impressed with Jessie is that she's gone to some of these gyms where some of the top younger ninjas are, and has been training with them and learning how to link and how the new ways are and how to speed it up. And I'm like, she's been through the top of the top, and now she's starting with a whole new thing, and she's doing it. She's linking it. And it's exciting to see that you can keep going after all the injuries and after all the changes, because the kids, I call them kids, to me, they are kids, have started their life. They grew up with ninja. So they've learned things all along the way, and new techniques, and to go back to square one and learn all of that and then compete with it, I think is something to be celebrated, and it's quite an accomplishment.
I love the generation of homegrown ninjas, because there's just so much amazing, like you said, like new technique and just innovative obstacles. And it's just continuing to evolve the sport in this way. And it's cool that she's been able to see that and recognize that and be like, okay, I might have been at the top of the game, but I'm going to go and I'm going to learn from this new generation. I think there's a lot of insight, especially in the world of ninja, as it is still so new. Let's end with this. So what does ninja mean to you?
Opportunities, challenges. That's probably the two top things that I would say. It also breaking the mold a little bit by being older and showing seniors what you can accomplish if you keep going. I think that's probably the biggest thing, is to motivate and inspire people that you're never too old and it's never too late to chase a dream. And if you fall, get up and train harder. And to find a great supportive group to work out with, and supportive in the fact that they are doing it too, and they support you. Like my husband, he supports me in going out and doing all these things. That's a great one. I love the challenge of beating an obstacle.
Ginny, thank you so much for your time, your conversation, your insights today. How can people get in contact with you?
I have shown my journey on Instagram mostly. And I think a lot of people have said to me, wow, I saw you when you got your first pull up. So it's exciting to see the journey, to actually see it in pictures. I also do Facebook, of course, and I do TikTok. That's relatively new. And I have a channel, but it has my old commercials, TV commercials on it that I used to do when I was in New York. Made a living doing TV commercials. So there are a lot of fun ones that were done in the 70s and 80s when people didn't have DVRs and they watched commercials.
You actually are a true inspiration with a
thank
lot of
you.
this stuff, and thanks for coming on.
I appreciate that so much. Thank you. Thank you for having me. And thank you to your audience.